In this video, I talk about what I did in my ideal Holy Spec talent tree. Now, again, there are no arrows drawn in this because this tree isn't meant to be complete. There are quite a few passives in this tree, but I didn't put enough of them into the tree for it to actually be complete. Looking at Blizzard's official Spec talent trees, they usually have a total number of talents in their Spec trees in the low to high 30s. I only have 23 in my Holy Spec talent tree. There would need to be more talents for this to work, including more talents from our Shadowlands talent grid. That being said, there are quite a few recognizable talents and abilities in here, and I'd like to talk about why I placed them where I did. First of all, I have to say, Holy is in a unique position. For most of Holy's history, we've had hard-casting Holy Light and Flash of Light as part of our core rotation. But for the last few years, a new playstyle has emerged where the Holy Paladin is in melee, using Crusader Strike and cooldown-reduced Holy Shocks to build Holy Power, then using Light of Dawn to heal the group, spot healing with Light of the Martyr, Holy Shock, and sometimes Word of Glory. Rarely, if ever, does the Paladin hardcast Flash of Light or Holy Light. Now, I still play the hardcasting playstyle, and I think the class's design should support the hardcasting playstyle, but I also believe that the melee playstyle should still be supported as well. Those players should not have the rug pulled out from under them. But given the flexibility and player agency that the new talent system offers us, I figured the Spec talent tree should be designed with melee talents on one side and hardcasting talents on the other side, so players can pick and choose which playstyle they're going for. I arbitrarily chose the left-hand side for the melee talents and the right-hand side for the hardcasting talents. You can see right at Tier 2, where I have Light of the Martyr on the left and Holy Light on the right. Either one of them is skippable if the player feels so inclined, though I have a confession to make about the root of the Holy Spec tree. I wasn't sure whether it should have a passive that increases our maximum mana or an active ability like Light of Dawn. Heck, in my original script I toyed with the idea of putting Beacon of Light there, though I figured modifying Beacon of Light so it copied both your healing and your damage to your beacon target as heals would give Beacon of Light more utility, so I put it in the class talent tree and put Light of Dawn in the shallowest part of the Holy Spec tree. Now that I see that Blizzard is in fact willing to give players things without requiring them to spend talent points to get them, I see that the Holy Insight passive is something we'd get under the hood for free just for picking the Holy Spec, and as such, it should not be in the talent tree at all. So, just ignore that guy with the glowing eyes and the glowing bullet hole where his third eye should be. Oh boy, that is a sentence I never thought I'd say. Anyhow, you can see I put the Infusion of Light passive over on the right, since to a playstyle that never hardcasts it would be worthless. Another thing I put over on the right is an ability I have long wanted to see unpruned. Holy Radiance. At least, it's an ability that has the same icon as and all the same properties as the spell that was called Holy Radiance had during Mists of Pandaria and Warlords. It's got no cooldown, it's got a 1.5 second cast time, it's a ranged group heal, and it provides 1 holy power each time you cast it. But it's renamed Divine Circle in this version for reasons that will become obvious when we get to the deepest talents on the right-hand side. Though I'd like to take an aside here and say that for the last 3 expansions, the Blizzard developers seem to have intentionally carved a group heal-shaped hole in Holy's kit. And apparently they've been trying to make their borrowed power systems look cool by using them to fill that hole in. I say that partly because the developers never actually told us what their intentions were when they removed Holy Radiance going from Warlords to Legion, nor their intentions for removing Denounce, so we can only make educated guesses about their intent based on their actions. Another reason I say that is because in every expansion from Legion onwards, there have been borrowed powers that boosted group healing. The Legion Artifact weapon ability was a group healing cooldown, which I will talk about later when I get to the deepest part of the tree. Glimmer of Light was an Azerite armor trait, the Resplendent Light conduit provides Holy Light with some splash healing, and 3 of our 4 Paladin Covenant abilities help with group healing in one form or another. I figure that now that borrowed power isn't a thing anymore, there's no need for that group heal-shaped hole to continue to exist in Holy Paladin's kit. So it's the perfect time to unprune Holy Radiance, or should I say the spell that was called Holy Radiance during Warlords and Mists. With that out of the way, there is another passive that I have right below Divine Circle, and it's called Tower of Radiance, but its effect is actually the effect of the Daybreak passive from Mists of Pandaria. Casting Holy Radiance during Mists of Pandaria gave Holy Shock some splash healing, and that stacked up to 2 times. Admittedly, in Mists, Holy Shock had a 6-second cooldown. Since both Holy Shock and Holy Radiance at the time provided Holy Power, that meant that the Daybreak passive in Mists gave Holy players a rotation like this: Holy Radiance, Holy Shock, Light of Dawn, rinse and repeat. I loved that flow, and I loved that I could use the Holy Power for something else if I had to. This was flexible and it was fun. Of course, Holy Shock's cooldown is no longer 6 seconds, but it would still be nice to give Holy Shock some splash healing when we need it. That's why I included the Tower of Radiance passive. The reason I renamed the Mists of Pandaria Daybreak passive to Tower of Radiance, which was a Cataclysm Holy talent by the by, is because there was a Daybreak talent in Cataclysm that was even cooler, and it would be perfect as a reward for spending talent points deep into the hard-casting side of the Holy Spec tree. In Cataclysm, Daybreak gave your hard-cast heals a chance to cause your next Holy Shock not to incur its own cooldown. This made for fun surprises in gameplay and is definitely one of Holy's greatest hits. Honestly, though, if we're talking about Holy's greatest hits, I have to talk about the Denounce spell. It looked cool, it cost no mana, so we could use it whenever we weren't healing, and it would just look amazing if it went with the spellbook casting animation we've got these days. The way we wave our hand out in the direction of our target, oh, it's just begging for a projectile spell animation to be added to it. I'd have put Denounce on the right-hand side of the Holy Spec talent tree if I hadn't already put it in between Retribution and Holy's columns in the class talents. I figured Denounce can do a little more good in the class tree than in the spec tree. Honestly, if Blizzard releases Dragonflight and Denounce isn't in it, I will feel like they have failed us in terms of class design and have ignored one of the greatest hits of the spec's history. But back to the talents that actually are in my ideal spec tree. Resplendent Light was... I put it in when I realized it wasn't technically mutually exclusive with Divine Circle and could be a really efficient way to heal up a group if no one's in immediate danger. Honestly, I prefer Holy Radiance, or should I say Divine Circle, over Resplendent Light. But if they're not mutually exclusive, Resplendent Light, it's okay. It's nice. As for the deepest talent on the hardcasting side, it's an octagonal pick-one talent that's got one returning ability and one that I kinda sorta half made up. The returning ability is Tyr's Deliverance, which is an artifact weapon ability from Legion. It was a no-brainer for the hard-casting ultimate. Tyr's Deliverance was itself a hard-cast spell, for one thing, and for another thing, it was a group healing cooldown that both healed injured allies in range and buffed them for 10 seconds so that your hard-cast heals would heal them for even more. And the best part is, your heals don't consume that buff. So you can prioritize healing whichever targets need the healing. As a flexible cooldown with plenty of synergy with our hardcast kit, this is the perfect ultimate for the hardcast side. Another ability in that octagon is one that I semi-made up, borrowing a spell name that we haven't seen since Mists, and an icon we haven't seen on an ability since Mists. Divine Light. It's a plain old powerful and efficient hardcast single-target heal on a 15-second cooldown. It provides 1 holy power if you cast it on a non-beaconed target, 2 holy power if you cast it on a beaconed target, or on an enemy to deal holy damage. I threw the ability to do holy damage with it in there for no other reason than because I thought it was cool, and it's generally cool to have damaging abilities in the deepest parts of the talent tree. And I figured giving players a choice between a group healing talent and a single target healing talent was a smart idea. You can tell, I was prioritizing the fun factor and the cool factor very, very highly when I was making these half-finished trees. Heck, I had a rant lasting for several minutes in my first draft for this video, talking about my priorities, and I put the fun factor first in my priority list and the cool factor second. I also had a rant about how I suspect one of the big reasons the last couple expansions sucked was because the Blizzard devs made the mistake of prioritizing their design goals over prioritizing the fun factor. Of course, that's not the only reason, and I have other things I need to talk about in this video, so I'll let what I just said be a summary for those rants and get to something that a significant demographic of Holy players will find quite interesting indeed, and will find to be a better investment of both their time as viewers and my time as a content creator. You might have noticed an octagon on Tier 7, the 4th column, that has our old mastery Illuminated Healing as one of its 2 options. That mastery applies damage shields to the targets of our heals, doesn't require us to be near the targets we heal, and with my setup, Holy players can opt into it if they like. Again, I don't have any arrows in this bare-bones, only half-finished tree, but the idea was that there'd be arrows going both into and out of this talent and around it, so it would be skippable if the player wants to skip it. Not every player will want to skip it. Those who do want it can opt into it easily enough, and those who don't can skip this node of the talent tree, or they can get the other option that's in this octagon, which is Beacon of the Lightbringer. That's an old Legion talent that modified our mastery so that it's either proximity to the Holy Paladin or proximity to the beaconed target that our mastery counts, whichever one is closer. Either of these 2 talents enables us greater freedom for where to stand while we're healing, and while neither talent in that octagon would be very useful for a melee playstyle Holy Paladin, the talent is located far enough from the talents they'd get so that it wouldn't be a problem for them. Now let's talk about the middle. You might have noticed that a lot of talents that are currently in our talent grid in Shadowlands aren't shown here. It's not that I don't want those talents gone, I don't want them gone. The reason you don't see them is because I couldn't decide where to put them other than somewhere in the middle. I very much want Holy Prism, Divine Purpose, Judgment of Light, and the other talents to make the trip from Shadowlands to Dragonflight. I just haven't figured out where exactly they'd be in the tree, or even whether they'd be in the class tree or the spec tree. What I do have in the middle so far are Cleanse, Aura of Mercy, an Octagon talent with Beacon of Faith and Beacon of Virtue, and an Ultimate Octagon talent with Ashen Hallow and Divine Toll. The reason I put the Covenant abilities in the middle isn't just because that's what the Druid talents did. It's because I felt like both the hard-casting playstyle and the melee playstyle could benefit from these abilities, and I figured talents that either style could benefit from belonged in the middle. That's also why the Beacon talents are in the middle and close to the deepest part of the talent tree. To be honest, it wouldn't be bad if we switched the Covenant ability Octagon and the Beacon talent Octagon, just as long as they were both in the middle so they're accessible to both playstyles and fairly deep due to their desirability and value. Aura of Mercy is the aura that I used in Legion. It provides slow passive healing to nearby injured allies. I liked it, but if there are too many group healing talents in this, well, I'd kind of be okay with letting it go. To be honest, maybe I've been without Holy Radiance for too long and I'm getting too greedy and pulling in as many group healing options as I can from Holy's whole 18-year-long history. Glimmer of Light is in the middle left because I figure it's a little more melee-ish than hard cast-ish. It's my understanding that today the numbers don't really favor Glimmer healing, but hopefully that can be fixed in Dragonflight. Heck, hardcasters could benefit from Glimmer healing, so that's why it's in the middle left instead of the far left. Another passive I have on the middle left is a passive from Cataclysm called Protector of the Innocent. That is almost like another healing spell in terms of its effect. If the Paladin heals another target, that Paladin will get healed for a small amount that scales with gear, though obviously Light of the Martyr shouldn't trigger it, all our other heals can. If I recall correctly, that Protector of the Innocent passive even had its healing copied to our beaconed target in Cataclysm. I'm not sure we should go that far, but Protector of the Innocent seems like an excellent talent for playstyles that involve Light of the Martyr healing, or even mixing in a little off-tanking. When's the last time you heard the phrase off-tanking? Anyway, I think I should talk about the far left melee talents. Crusader's Might is a passive that lowers Holy Shock's cooldown when you cast Crusader Strike, and that's a staple of the melee playstyle, so I've put it pretty shallow in the tree and on the left. Bestow Faith might have been mutually exclusive with Crusader's Might in Shadowlands talent grid, but since Bestow Faith is an instant cast spell, it seems to me to be right up the melee playstyle's alley. though in retrospect maybe it belongs in the middle left, or maybe even in the middle instead of the far left, since hardcast playstyles could make use of Bestow Faith as well. I also figured that Avenging Crusader felt melee-ish, so I put it on the far left, right between a carryover conduit and a carryover legendary effect that each made Light of the Martyr healing stronger. The carryover conduit effect is Untempered Dedication, which is a stacking buff that boosts Light of the Martyr's healing by up to 25% if you get 5 stacks. The legendary is Marad's Dying Breath, which causes Light of Dawn to increase Light of the Martyr's healing and to make it heal the beaconed target. These play well together and are both on the left-hand side, though since I don't play the melee playstyle myself, I'm only making semi-educated guesses about what belongs there. I made 2 more semi-educated guesses when I created the 2 options in the octagonal ultimate for the melee playstyle. One of the choices is a spell that is called Holy Radiance, but is nothing like the Holy Radiance spell we had in Warlords, and that I unpruned and renamed to Divine Circle. The Holy Radiance spell that I put at the deepest part of the melee line of talents is borrowed from Heroes of the Storm and Uther's abilities during his flashbacks in Shadowlands. This version of Holy Radiance launches an orb of holy energy forward, which damages enemies and heals allies that it passes through. Maybe it could also build holy power, I'm not sure. It's on a cooldown, but as it's instant, I figured it would fit nicely with the melee playstyle, especially if you can target an ally and have the orb fly to the ally without having to turn around. The other talent that is in that octagon is Holy Strike, a spell that we haven't heard about since 2003 or so. Once upon a time, during World of Warcraft's beta in the early 2000s, Paladins had a Holy Strike ability. We've gotten a pretty good kit since then, though I wish they'd unprune Denounce like I did in the class tree, but I figure that another strike that can be mixed into the melee playstyle is a wise idea. I haven't hashed out all the details of what it does, though. Does it have a cooldown? Does it transfer extra healing to the beaconed target? Does it do some splash healing? Does it replace Crusader Strike? I haven't figured any of that out, and probably I'm not the best candidate for figuring it out either. That covers all the stuff that I put into my Holy Spec talent tree. If I had to pick one thing for Blizzard to listen to me about, it would be about unpruning Denounce. Unpruning Holy Radiance, whether it was renamed or not, is a very close second to that, and if I didn't think they were already planning on unpruning Rebuke for Holy Paladins, that would be on the list as well. After that comes setting up the trees so that hard casting and melee playstyles are both supported, and honorable mention goes to having a wraparound class talent tree that lets all the specs synergize. That's about all I got to say about this. Obviously, these trees aren't fleshed out anything like enough to be in the game as they are, and I already know that I've made mistakes along the way in designing them. I just don't know the full list of mistakes, but getting something out there for players to discuss seems like it's a wise idea that will help Blizzard understand what it is that players want.